Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
We said at the start we'd come to celebrate, and I think we had. We've enjoyed remembering, and I'm sure you won't forget. So, with a final farewell smile from those southern people who've become, for many of you, true friends, it's goodbye from us.
The final close down of a television channel is something of a lost art these days. In recent years, when channels have bid us farewell, we're lucky if we even get a quick montage before the ominous caption slide telling us that this service is no longer in operation. However, back in the heady days of television, such occasions could be marked by elaborate fanfares. We've seen how celebratory Television South was when it waved its final goodbye at the end of 1992, and just over a decade prior, we saw the polar opposite with its predecessor, Southern Television. The sombre tones and overall doom and gloom feel painted a downbeat picture of the occasion, but was still presented as its own special event. This happened right at the end of 1981, and at the same time, further north, another well-known staple was equally bidding its viewers a final farewell. Associated Television, or ATV as it was most commonly known, was one of the first companies to obtain an independent television licence and get up and running, launching its service, initially serving the London region on the weekends, on the 24th of September 1955, just 2 days after ITV as a whole began transmissions with associated rediffusion. A few months later, in the February of 1956, it began a service in the Midlands, operating on weekdays. Throughout the remainder of the 50s and into the 60s, audiences in both regions became familiar with the name, and particularly its logo. The ATV-I, as it's become known, definitely draws some inspirations and parallels from the logo of the Columbia Broadcasting System, or CBS, over in the United States. Legend has it that Lou Grade, the head honcho of ATV, designed the logo himself whilst returning home on a transatlantic flight. Makes for a good story, doesn't it? 1968 would see some massive upheavals across the ITV network, and ATV was no exception to that. It would lose its London Weekend franchise, its replacement being named London Weekend, funnily enough. However, its Midlands contract was not only renewed, but extended to cover all 7 days of the week. With the introduction of colour television coming around shortly after, ATV would continue to produce and distribute classic programmes that have gone on to become legendary. Chief amongst them was The Muppet Show, a huge hit and huge gamble paid off for Lou Grade, who famously took a chance on Jim Henson and his Muppets when several other broadcasters turned him away. Another hit was the soap opera Crossroads, which had been on the go since the 60s. Several days a week, viewers in their millions would tune into the antics happening at the Crossroads premises, often spearheaded by its leading star, Noel Gordon. However, despite some major successes, all was not well within ATV, as the 1970s neared their end. Each ITV licence holder has a duty to provide a certain degree of local programming tailored to audiences in the region that they serve. ATV, despite operating in the Midlands for over 20 years, was frequently criticised for its lack of said programming, or more specifically, for seemingly ignoring specific parts of the Midlands, a common accusation being that there was a focus on Birmingham and not much else. The Independent Broadcasting Authority, or IBA, had decided that enough was enough. Citing the lack of local programming and the fact that ATV held studios in London, a byproduct from its weekend franchise days, the IBA determined that a new company apply for the Midlands franchise, have television facilities for both the east and west of the region, and be based and operate from the region entirely. With that in mind, Grade & Co., hoping to maintain the licence in some form, created a shell company known as ATV Midlands Limited. They applied for the licence and indeed won it, though there were several conditions imposed, one of them primarily being to rename the company. Once everything was agreed, it would mean that ATV, one of the elder statesmen of the ITV network, and known by many millions even outside of its region, would be closing down for good.
Good morning. This is ATV, which provides your programmes on the Midlands transmitters of the Independent Broadcasting Authority.
The moment would arrive on New Year's Eve 1981, the final day of programmes for ATV. Keep in mind that when we looked at Southern's demise, which happened at the same time, The final programme was one of mourning, a sense of losing something that people held dear, even though a fair few of the staff would stay on as TVS took over. Would ATV deliver something similar? Something for their audiences who had been tuning in day after day for a quarter of a century? Well, not quite.
Here's the regional weather forecast for New Year's Day.
After a final weather bulletin, an old familiar face for ATV viewers appears to bid one final farewell.
And that's the weather forecast for the ATV region. And you know, it's funny that tonight it's the last time I'm going to be saying ATV, because as from now we're Central. And it's appropriate that this evening, popping in for a New Year's Eve drink, Shaw Taylor, because Shaw was one of the first announcers with ATV back in the dare I say, the mid-1950s.
Yes, you can, when my hair was almost as silver as yours.
I see.
Michael.
Now, Shaw, are you just a little bit sad this evening that the name ATV is fading out?
Because they were marvellous days. You know, ATV has been very much part of my life over the years. Police 5, 20 years, ATV even longer. And there used to be Jeannie Morton was an announcer here, and Peter Coburn, Arthur Adair. The four of us used to split it up between us. So, yes, I am. I'm very sad to see ATV disappearing. But by the same token, I'm very excited at what Central promises. In other words, the split franchise, new studios in Nottingham, exciting things like that. I should get 2 Police 5s now, twice as much time. With a bit of luck, we'll catch twice as many villains. And the whole sort of news coverage expanding. It's a very exciting prospect. So I truly do say I'm sad to see ATV go, but I'm very excited at saying welcome to Central.
I think this is a lovely inclusion. Shaw Taylor, an original announcer from the early days, giving a short but succinct appreciation for ATV as a whole, with goodwills and hopes for the future. It's not a farewell programme in itself, but at least it doesn't feel like we're attending a funeral. With that out of the way, comes the final bit of continuity announcing before close down, and surely we can expect perhaps a similar, short but sweet tribute for ATV.
Indeed, welcome to Central, and of course the most important thing this evening, Shaw, to everyone at home, a very happy 1982. Happy New Year. New Year's Eve celebrations continue now on independent local radio. There are 3 stations within our area broadcasting through the night: BRMB in Birmingham, Beacon in Wolverhampton, and Trent serving Nottingham. And tonight, Mercia in Coventry and Centre Radio in Leicester are on the air until 1 o'clock. The time now, 32 minutes and 53 seconds past midnight. Have a peaceful night, and I hope you enjoy New Year's Day.
Nope, absolutely nothing. Just announcements regarding which radio stations are going to be on the air overnight, a Happy New Year for 1982, and that's it. Cue National Anthem. And with the closing notes of God Save the Queen, viewers bid goodbye to the ATVI for the very last time. For when they would wake later that New Year's Day, it wouldn't be an eye that would greet them, but more of a moon, shall we say, and a brand new name to go with it. And right from the very beginning, it made its intentions very clear.
Welcome to 1982. Welcome to Central. A new name in British television, with a fresh approach to the east and west of this dual region.
A trailer reel follows highlighting some of the programmes that will be appearing on Central, including one fronted by future Who Wants to Be a Millionaire host Chris Tarrant.
Now, we all know Chris Tarrant, and he's responsible, if that's the word, for a new programme called OTT. It's a new approach to entertainment, and he seems to be just the right man for the job. That's late-night viewing for all the older kids amongst us.
Following that, we get a short little interlude regarding the identification symbol that Central uses.
And our team of announcers will always keep you informed of programmes to come. This is the symbol that identifies Central. And the specially written new music you're hearing is the music that will open and close Central every day. This is Central.
I quite like this little segment. It may seem unnecessary nowadays, but there's something strangely comforting about hearing an announcer talk about the channel's logo and music and the role it'll play within daily operations. More trailers follow, and this one about the news teams is quite interesting to note.
At 6, our Central news teams will be bringing you the fastest, freshest, most up-to-date coverage of the day's events from the East and the West.
Considering how ATV was constantly criticised for its lack of local coverage, particularly across East and West, it's refreshing to see Central tackle that criticism head-on, reassuring viewers that no matter where they resided in the Midlands, they would be covered by the new service and its news teams.
And here now, your programmes for this morning, with our feature film, Digby, the biggest dog in the world, at 9:55.
After a look at the morning's lineup, it all ends with quite a defining line to kick things off.
Welcome to 1982. Welcome to Central. And welcome to our morning programmes.
And thus, Central was the new name in town, taking over ATV operations and going on to be the name for a whole new generation of viewers in the Midlands. And that was truly it for ATV. Whilst the name has lived on in some form or another, the initial end to what was considered to be one of the big hitters of the ITV network is surprisingly low-key. We get that nice little tribute from Shaw Taylor, who had been around at the beginning of the company, but aside from those kind words, nothing else really marks what was the end of an era after 25 years. There could be many reasons as to why, chief amongst them perhaps that initially, Central was essentially the same company that had been behind ATV, so for them, a continuity was carried over. This wasn't to last, mind you, and even Lou Grade would lose his grip, but initially, if the team behind the operations wasn't making much of a fuss about the transition, then why should they hype it up for the public? Of course, it's nice and fascinating for us now to look back on special close-down programmes like those put on by Southern, TVS and even Thames, a wonderful glimpse into eras of television coming to a close. But for ATV, it seems like the mantra had been to pay a humble tribute, close down as normal, and get the new name and service up and running as swiftly and as fuss-free as possible. Central would go on to have a prosperous life in the ITV network, and like I said, it's known and adored by the many who remember and grew up with it. But for an equal amount of people, when it comes to talking about ITV in the Midlands, the first name that will often come up would be Associated Television. That ATV, with the I logo and blaring fanfare to boot. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Liam Domain, AJ Mac 200017, Deck, Jen, Traffy, Evan Hart 42 Radio, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Mananol Thurman, 40-something Manchild, Jerry Ralph, John McLeod, James Wallace, Stephen Oliver, Shadow Theme 180X, Swan Ronson, Adam Gamer, Sir Fonzie Daz, Seraphic Euphoria, Real Random, Matthew Elliff, Pigeon's House, Shah H, Dave Batten, and Real Team Foxy Plays, our AMTV staff members.